Welcome everybody to the May session of the Commission on Aging Well. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first, we'd like to, we have new members today. We'd like to welcome Janice Hughes, who has volunteered very nicely to serve on the commission and appointed by the mayor. You want to say a few words, Janice?
Well, actually, I'm a resident of Fitchburg. I have been for about 23 years. I'm retired from American Family. My background experience is human resources, and the whole gamut of human resources. But I just want to give back to the community, and so that's why I got involved with the senior center, and I figured that's where I want to volunteer my time. And I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. Well, welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we'll introduce ourselves to you. I'm Jim Sosnowski. I'm the chair of the committee. I've been on the committee for many years. Jill keeps asking me to come back.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I'm Donna Stewart. I am retired from the University of Wisconsin system after a long career in education, and have been on the commission a couple of years-ish. So, like you, am interested in this chapter in giving back in a variety of ways.
And you're a home delivered meal driver.
I do. I deliver Meals on Wheels on Mondays.
Yeah.
I volunteer in one of the schools on Thursdays.
Oh, okay.
Just a variety of things. Yeah. Welcome.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
I'm Barbara Rotman. I've been on the committee. This is my second term. I too am a Meals on Wheels driver. I'm on Wednesdays. And I've been active in a variety of activities here at the Senior Center, and I too have a human resources background, so we can talk the same language.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. It's quite the language too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Barbara.
Thank you.
I'm Pam Yoder. I probably am the last new person on
Yeah, I think you're the most
last
recent.
fall. Fall.
Yeah.
And so I am a retired educator for 46 years. Our last was superintendent. So I was kind of looking for something to really be involved in that, was an opportunity to give back to the community and match my skills. I'm also on the Friends of the Fitchburg Senior Center and the liaison. So lots of opportunities.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Okay, and we have a new member, representative from the council. Jay Allen is going to be our liaison to the council. He was going to
We might pop in, zoom in.
Zoom in, yeah, but he might join us a little bit later. Okay, well, Jill usually sends out the draft minutes from the previous month and via email. And everybody, what we'd like to do is everybody review the minutes ahead of time, and then as we come to this meeting, then we would approve the minutes or if there's any modifications. So for those of you who have had a chance to look at the minutes, are there any additions or corrections?
I found one, I think there was a word missing on page 4. Senior Center will begin another.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I think it's fundraiser.
It's where patio cost estimates came in higher than expected. Senior Center will begin another, isn't a fundraiser?
Oh, yes, yeah, because we restarted.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll add that. Any other modifications? If not, do I hear a motion for the amended minutes?
I so move.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. There are no public appearances today, so we will move directly on to the agenda items. The first one would be Resolution R9423, authorizing the patio.
Okay, so I'll kind of bring you guys up to speed. This is, the bids went out and we only received one bid back, which in these days and times, it sounds like that's not uncommon. It's hard for companies to find workers and they're just kind of stretched. We actually even extended it by a week, the bid, but we got good recommendations of the person that bid. It's in the packet. It's a company out of Janesville. So anyway, the bid came in at $93,000. We added 5% contingency because things happen. We are continuing to fundraise because we successfully fundraised close to $70,000 in 3 months, which I felt really proud about. A big chunk came from a business. Kaiser Ford Foundation gave us $10,000, but the rest, with the exception of a few other businesses, came from people from Fitchburg, people that participate at the senior center that feel very connected. They really got behind this project. So we are going to move forward because the senior center has a legacy fund. That it's a fund that is set aside that people can donate to that only goes to the senior center. That's it. In the city, it never goes in the general fund. So it's a donation fund that is secured for the senior center and things that might not be covered in the budget. And so when people give to the legacy fund, they can choose where they want that money to go. There's 5, I think, items or 4. It can go to building needs. It can go to the volunteer program. It can go to general programs, or it can go to greatest need. And 99% of the donors say greatest need, whatever you feel like. So I decided that we would use some of those funds to fill in the gap of the missing funding while we reopened the fundraiser. So it was kind of backwards, this project, because I was directed to raise the funds before we could move forward there is no city money going into this project, so it was a big undertaking. I sort of missed the mark with how much it might cost. We in talking with some landscape architects and stuff, we figured $75,000 would get us there, but it came in higher. So again, in order to move forward with the project, I had to commit those legacy funds to the project. So we have enough now to move forward, and we are moving forward. But with reopening the fundraising, because we shut it at the end of December saying we're good, and then we found out we're not. We raised, even just this month, $2, $3, almost $5,000. So people are still giving to the project. So it's going to be a beautiful patio. So the first step is it gets referred out from the Commission on Aging on Tuesday, and it goes through several other committees. So we're the first committee to see this project. Next, it'll go to Public Works, who they've been involved since day one. So I don't see any issues when it goes to Public Works about the project. And then last, it goes to Finance Committee on the 23rd. And if it's approved by Finance, then it will go to Council that night for a final approval. If we get our final approval on May 23rd, then we can award that bid, and then we can look at a start date. So I don't foresee any issues, because a big project like this has a lot of oversight as it's going along. You have to get architectural review from ProMega because it's property that they donated a long time ago for this whole city campus. So any construction that happens and changes the landscape of the outside has to have architectural review by the Fitchburg Center, who is the overriding company over ProMega. So getting that, working with Public Works along the way, working with planning to make sure that it fit into, the piece of land. Again, this will be no surprise at any of these committees. So anyway, hopefully the start date is really up to the company But the end date in the RFP the patio has to be completed by August 31st.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Ah.
So, which is really wonderful because September is National Senior Center Month, and so we can celebrate hopefully and do a grand opening on the patio.
Mm-hmm.
So with your approval today, it's in the packet, and hopefully most of you have seen the drawings, down there, the renderings of the patio, which I think is really pretty. So you can get into the nuts and bolts of this information in your packet, but what I would need here today for all of you to ask any questions and feel comfortable approving this and then moving it on to Public Works.
Yeah, the only question I had when I was looking was really not about this bid, but about the process. And you won't run into a challenge with only having one submission to the RFP.
Nope.
There's no minimum requirement.
No. No. The only challenge is if you have several bids and you're told that you have to take the lowest bid, but you don't want to.
Right.
That's challenging, and I've dealt with that before. You have to have strong justification to take a bid that you want if it's not the lowest bid. So this is the lowest bid and the only bid.
Is there any penalty if they don't finish by August 31st?
I suspect that there is. I think if I shouldn't say that. I think that there is something in the clause that allows them, if they give us advance notice, if for unforeseen circumstances delay the project, that they can do that. But I'd have to look a little more clearly about that, Barb.
Well, since it's the only bid that you have, did you get several references or?
Yes, we did. Yeah, they're vetted, and we did get references. And it goes out on a big public website that people can bid on, and they have worked with their references are good. That's what I should say.
Okay.
And again, a big RFP like this, Public Works kind of handles it.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very well written. I've looked at a lot of RFPs.
Yeah. I didn't write it. That's not really. I don't do a lot of building of things. So, yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, do you expect to continue fundraising even after it starts? I think you would have an opportunity to maybe get donations at a grand opening or something.
I think so, because I think that, the money that we're using is really to build the patio. There's still some furnishings we want to put out
What about the
there.
bricks? That's extra, right?
Well, so the bricks are, the bricks we have to purchase on our own. And you can purchase a brick for $1,000, a 12 by 12, and have an engraving. So I think that we will continue to fundraise. We did write a grant to Gordon Flesh. And they were very interested in the project, but they don't award their grants until July. And then we wrote a grant to Epic, and we're waiting to hear back from them. And so I think there's some other opportunities that we could generate some revenue, even if it's just to put money back into the legacy funds so we can use it for other things. Go ahead.
There's two things that I was glad that you explained the legacy fund, because that's the question I had. I was okay, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah.
But also I'm just curious. It sounds like the patio is going to be absolutely great, and it's been a big deal. What initiated a patio?
So, we've always talked about having a patio outside for years, actually, Mandy and I. And after COVID, we, just talking about how important it is to be outdoors, and starting to see more people come in the mornings or just hanging out at the senior center, I thought it would be really nice to have outdoor seating. And then for small groups, I know Jim's men's group could fit on the patio. We have a lot of small groups that could meet out there. We're starting the biking, and people, hopefully will come back, have a cup of coffee, sit on the patio, and just to create another gathering space. And certainly it's not just for seniors. This is a community building. So, if there's people that are using the building, there's a lot of programs that go on at night, that parents bring their kids to and wait, that they have a place to sit out on a nice day. And also too, we notice a lot of times the folks that use our transportation to come on the bus, when they're waiting, they sit outside. And they used to pull chairs from inside outside. And I just think overall it'll be used for a lot of different things. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I noticed that the people who work in the kitchen
Yeah.
to prepare meals when they have a break time or whatever, like to sit outside. And it seems like such a great way for them to relax and kind of build a little community too. Because when you work with a group like that, it's nice to get to know them.
Right, right.
And it just, they seem to really enjoy that space.
Yeah,
And so I think other people would as well.
I hope so. I think so. I know so. This is a lot of work if nobody sits out there, but I feel extremely confident that people will really enjoy the patio. So.
I'll come sit on it.
Yep, yeah, please. Okay.
Also, we have a veterans group that
yeah.
comes in, and in the nice weather, they can sit out there and chit chat. And
It should have space for, I think we said up to 18. Depending on how you put the chairs out and how many tables we have and stuff. So, yeah,
So do you need a motion?
we do.
we do need a
Unless
motion.
there's any other questions, we want to move on. Okay.
Do I hear a motion for approval?
I so move.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passed.
All right, thank you.
Great.
All right. Okay.
Senior Center Programming Policy.
All right. I'm going to pull something else out because I actually gave you the wrong one. And I've made copies and I'll pull it up. So the city attorney, I was waiting for, we had talked on the phone and stuff, but I needed a hard copy. This did not come through from the attorney until Friday. So it was too late to put in the packet. So my intention was to put the original one in that we talked about, which was not that one. So, thank you. And I'll bring, it's got it. I'm gonna pull it up. And I talked to the attorney. I said, well, can I talk about this because it wasn't in the packet? And she said, you can because you didn't have to amend your agenda. So we're okay there. But I will amend the packet. So it's, there's a record of that. Hold on. I'm going to put it up on the screen too. So there we go, if anybody wants to see it up there. So just some background, Janice, and for what we discussed too. So I had been looking at, we never really had a strong programming policy to kind of guide how we offered programs. And we had a presenter policy that sort of encompassed political candidates as well as people that would come and present on programs. So several months ago, a while ago, we split it out to have a separate political candidate policy because if a candidate comes in, there are certain things that I can and can't do, or my staff, and you want to make sure you treat everybody the same. If I introduce one candidate, then I have to introduce all candidates. If one candidate asks for a program, do I have to invite everybody to do a program? So we worked with the city attorney and developed a policy for candidates. And then that's helpful because, it can get tense in times where races are close or, controversial. So then once we broke that off, I wanted to look at a programming policy, and it was kind of driven by when I had a presenter talk about Vladimir Putin. And this was before their Ukraine war, but he's not a well-liked person in some eyes. But the gentleman that was speaking had spent years and years and years in Russia and had done a lot of history on him, and so that was his program, kind of like, who is this man and how did he rise to power? It wasn't meant to be political or anything like that. Well, it did kind of raise a few red flags with some people as well as the city. And so I look at our senior center, part of aging well is continuing education. And so I just wanted to be able to have a policy where if we do offer programs, that it doesn't mean that that's what I promote. It doesn't have anything to do with my values. It might, but it doesn't intend, that's not the intention. It's to educate. And so that's where this started. And the part about, we looked at policy also about who we serve and how we serve. And, there's been, and Janice and I know, or Janice was very involved in her story, the Big Women's Program, and we've been talking a lot about doing more to serve all Fitchburg older adults of all colors and trying to move towards doing better that way and offering more culturally relevant topics that encourage people to come while not making people feel like they're not included or it's an exclusive group. And so anyway, we had added the bottom line too. The city did have policy about not discriminating on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, and gender. So originally, Janice, this was the one we talked about last month. And then you guys said, let's see what the attorney says. So we sent it to the attorney, and that's what she sent back Friday to me. And so today we're here, and there's no rush to push this through. I want to do it the right way, but this was her recommendations. So I think
This one is a little bit different than the one you passed out.
no.
Because I was wondering on the one you passed out, it crossed out race.
This is the one I passed out.
Yeah, but race,
No, it isn't crossed.
It's not.
oh, it's not crossed
I was
out.
going to say, yeah, okay.
Okay, my
Yeah.
cataracts are getting.
Yeah.
The line's a
Okay.
tad over though.
I was just wondering why they
Like,
crossed
oh my
out
God,
race.
did I
race,
even
and-
have a third
Okay.
copy? So
Okay.
again, the one in your packet was an old, anyway, I was trying to get it out too quickly. I didn't pay attention what I attached. I just wanted to attach the original one, and then, like I said, this came through on Friday, so I can amend our packet. But I want to talk about how everybody feels about this and the intent of the policy, and kind of take a step back because Janice is new and get her input as well.
Yeah, I guess, as I looked at the packet on both the policy one and then the other one, and I just felt for me, I just need to learn more about how this came about before I make any kind of, thoughts and decisions about how I feel about either of them. So I'm just going to back and listen more so then.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't, the new proposal does capture or respond to a couple of the concerns that did come out of last month's conversation, and that being, I think, a shared concern that calling people to action can be a good thing if the action is about their well-being or their financial well-being. And this really addresses, may not advocate or urge, violence or other illegal things. So address that and does capture inclusivity in a way we didn't have in the initial. So, I would support those. It's certainly a move in the right direction.
And I think the language of are not permitted is way stronger than will not be tolerated.
Yeah.
Is that kind of?
It is, it's black and white. It's
Right.
not, there's no perception.
Yep.
It's a no.
It's a no. Don't do it.
I wonder, since you said the intent is to educate, would it not be helpful to state that under the purpose? That the intent of programs, because this is programming policy, why do you have programs? And why do you permit anyone? So is it always an educational purpose that someone would offer a program? Or ask for space to offer a program? Does it,
No, and maybe this should be a speaker policy, not a programming policy.
Yeah, because programs
more-
are not
Because
always
programs
continuous
encompass
education.
exactly.
Yeah,
There's
That could be
social
informative or
groups, there are
something, yeah.
cards, there
There's all kind of things. Yeah.
So maybe we should change it to a presenter policy.
That may get to it. I think that would get closer to it because the programs are a variety.
Exactly. And again, before we split, it was called a presenter policy, but it didn't fit with the political candidate. Like it just felt, so that's when we split it. And then I was like, and then I just said, oh, this can just be a program policy, thinking about the Putin thing and the speaker. But it probably would be more descriptive if we called it a speaker policy or a presenter policy.
But you do have good speakers or programs.
Yeah. Our programs don't reflect the views of our department. So our programs do not necessarily represent the views of the department. Our presentations are,
guest speaker?
yeah.
Because these are not programs that the senior center offers, they're guest
And it
speakers.
says guest speakers.
Right under policy.
Under
yeah.
policy.
But we do offer them, but I think if we did add
If we chopped out programs, I'm just thinking there may be recurring things where we have speakers, but I'm thinking of Plato, where they have different speakers, and it's a program.
Well, and
So
even,
maybe
even
we should keep the programs in it.
Yeah, and even her story was a panel. They weren't speaking. I mean, they were speaking, but it was a panel discussion.
Right, so it's kind of like, how do you define program, or what
Right.
does that mean within the context of this
I think
policy?
they were presenting as much as being a collaborative.
But the intent was for them to present. That was really the intent, more so than collaborate, to tell their story, to present their story to a big audience. That's really what it
But
was.
I guess, it's that fine line of
It's that fine
presenting
line.
and.
Presenting or
Right.
program.
Yeah. I think of a presenter like a financial person coming in
Or the woman, I don't think, but Janet, like the woman that spoke, Tina, at the women's group, that was a presenter, wouldn't you say? Or it was within the context of a program.
Could you say the Fitchburg Center is committed to offering opportunities for open and inclusive discussions that reflect the diverse demographics? Substitute something.
Sometimes it isn't a discussion, it's a presentation.
Right,
Well, usually there's
But
question
then
and
it's just a
answer.
discussion,
Yeah, I mean,
Q&A or whatever,
You should
then
have,
you
you
get a
should have,
discussion. Yeah.
right, and you should always permit that.
Yeah.
But I think you're offering an option or an opportunity or a forum for people to explore these ideas.
Which gets to being inclusive.
Right.
Yeah.
Things that aren't coming from the senior center but are generated from the community.
Right.
So I think that's what, unless you want this policy to also cover the program, the classes and programs that the senior center offers. Do you want it to be separate from that or include that?
It seems like it would be similar but different.
I would think since the senior center is offering it, it's like your selection of teachers and so on.
Right.
Well, except you would use these same parameters.
For a
Would be
program.
illegal, unlawful.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to look, but that's the one thing about policies, I think you can't get in the weeds. It's a broad parameter of how you do business. You get too specific and then your policy gets holes. You know, so I think you have to keep it broad.
So your programming in the senior center is a subset of this. So this, to reinforce Pam's point, that this should be that truly a policy.
Right. Is there anything
And yours
on
is
there
more-
you wouldn't do in your own
No,
that was offered?
Yeah.
no,
You would follow, and you should follow the same standards that you would
Yeah,
expect for
right.
anybody else.
Right. I mean, and again, the impetus for this was, I didn't want people to feel like the senior center loves Putin because we did a program about Putin. Like, that wasn't it at all. And you know what I mean? Or that, oh, we're supporting that sort of, you know, I was like, I want to make sure that just because, you know, it's kind of like the sponsors in the newsletter, you know, we have the disclaimer, just because they're in there doesn't mean we love them, you know, and that's where this came from. And then it started to encompass, because I call it programming, you know, looking at everything that we do. It just felt better. But that was the impetus, is that there are times where we might offer a speaker or a topic or, you know, something that somebody's going to be. I was like, when we used to go to the casino years ago, we offered bus trips. It's kind of like that. And someone had called me and complained and said I was adding to the gambling problem. And, you know, so saying, and I wasn't pro-gambling, I don't gamble, but I also believe it's people's choice to, you know, to get on a bus and go gamble. And, you know, I also think it's people's choice to attend a program, to be educated. It's not the intention, you know, a healthy debate is fine. But again, if people start to act in a certain way, and Janice, I'll share some of these because we have a behavior policy, you know, that they start to intimidate people or, you know, make people feel uncomfortable or something, then we bounce back to that. Not that that has ever happened, but it could, you know.
If you would have had this policy at the time of the Putin presentation, would that have been enough for?
I would have at least been able to say to the city, we have this policy that, you know, again, because I don't want to just offer educational things that are fluff. Like, oh, yeah, you know, I think it's a good idea to challenge people's minds on different topics. You know, I know we talked a little bit about it. We had a whole series about different religions. You know, they weren't promoting any religion. It was an educational opportunity to learn about religions. And so,
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So this is new. You've never had a policy before, right?
we had a presenter policy years and years ago.
Okay.
And I will bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say, how
to
does that
compare.
differ?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'll bring the candidate one too.
Okay.
Or I can share that with you, Janice,
Yeah.
and our behavior policy too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll meet and I'll show you some of the things that, you know, because I want them all to blend nicely. So, you know, they all are
Consistent.
Yeah, they're consistent and they flow well. And if one's not covering it, then, well, this is okay. You know, it's very different now than it was 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
It's very
Absolutely.
different. And I think that we have to have some tighter policies and then policies that make sure we're doing the right thing, you know? And so that's kind of the intent of, we've been kind of going through a lot of policies over the past year, Janice. We looked at a personal care policy because we've had incidents where older adults will come in and they need help toileting, and that we can't do that. And for me to say we can't do that, if there's pushback, which there was, I want to have a policy to say we're not an adult daycare, you know, we can't take care, we can't, as much as we want to, you know, give you respite for you to drop your loved one off and they need assistance eating, that's not what we're here
That's
for.
not what you're-
So, you know, now there's a policy, mostly because I feel bad and I want to help people. we started a pet policy because we had somebody bringing in their dog. Like, so, everything, it's just a different world. And every time I'm like, oh, boy, I don't have a policy that says, this is a support dog or animal, it has to meet these standards. And so anyway, that's
We
why.
had one on guns.
I'm sorry?
Guns.
Yeah, we added the guns to the behavior policy, and the city has, that policy as well. So changing times, it's good to kind of just go through all these.
For this one that we're reviewing now, though, currently it says programming policy. But
Right.
we're talking about both programming and speakers, so I like the presentation policy, which would include both concepts, where if we just had programming, we'd leave out speaker maybe. If we just had speaker, we'd leave out the programming.
But a presentation, like what if it's just, the chess group, or that's a program, or the card games, or ping pong, like, you know what I mean? That's a program.
Why don't you just use the language that you have after policy, guest speakers /
And we
program
could have
policy?
two separate, again, we might be talking about two separate things.
But are you, see, this
I
is.
don't know,
I'm gonna go
I'm
back
not
to
sure.
that.
Yeah,
not
your
sure.
point
When I-
about the umbrella
Right.
is.
When I've
if we
done
cover it all.
policy work, it's almost like a policy autopsy. What does it say? And so when I read this, that's the first thing I did. Parameters, do not advocate views or positions, share opposing views, don't promote hate, and don't cause physical or emotional harm. So when you look at that, are those the pieces of everything that's done here? You would go back to that. Then it's an overall general policy for everything that you do versus specific.
Yeah.
Because you could have a policy for guest speakers, for programming, for, do you want all those
Right,
policies?
right.
Don't
Exactly.
care.
Do you want them?
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So I like a broader policy that just, covers it, that gives us some sense of guidance, that makes sure that we're doing right by everything we do. So it's that consistency that says, yeah, this is how we should move
Right.
forward with this.
Then you're not discriminating too with a presentation that's somewhere else. Right.
Okay. Okay, we are back on. Fact TV lost their feed and had to make some adjustments, so we apologize for the interruption. And we'll continue with our discussion on our programming policy. Candace?
Yeah, I guess my question was, has something other than the situation that you initially gone through happened? Nothing more than, okay?
No.
No? Okay. Because I'm just trying to get, why is this coming up, again?
Right.
And then the other part is this policy also to basically communicate that this not only talks about the presenter, what they're presenting, but the group that's presenting as well, correct? I mean, we talk about race and all this, so
Right.
this is to be inclusive, broad inclusive.
Broadly,
Okay.
right. That would be my hope.
Okay, I just want to make.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of good discussion and thoughts. Do we want to put something together based on all the input and then review it like we did with our other policies
Yeah.
for next time?
I mean, some of the main things I wrote down that we discussed was, maybe changing the title. But what would be a suggested name to this title? And maybe we can't do that until we decide on the policy, because if we call it a speaker, then it's not programmed. So, maybe we put some more thought into that. I did like the idea that rather than saying, the Fitchburg Senior Center is committed to offering an open and inclusive programs, that we say opportunities, which broadens what we're doing. So it's an opportunity to listen to a speaker, to attend a program, to participate in a class. Does that feel comfortable to you guys?
Yeah.
Like
That and as well, the inclusion of various groups that will be coming to the center to present.
Well, also, if it was a programs policy, then it would be addressing programs. It was a guest speaker. Programming is broader. I think that
It is.
includes guest speakers.
That it includes.
Programming does,
So
yeah.
keep it to programming,
I don't know,
you think?
I think, I'm just putting out as a thought, if it was programs policy, then it would be specific to programs.
Which
Versus
But it's
programming.
not.
Not all
It's
programs have
programs.
Versus programming.
Right, is a broader term.
I agree. What did you say,
I
Janice?
just said, but not all programs have speakers.
Right.
You know, some of the things, it's
Right.
not.
Right. So if we said programs can be a speaker, it could be.
And I would say programming, because programming is
Programming.
broader.
Oh, you like program?
I like it better, yeah,
The way it is.
What do we currently have?
programming.
Programming is more,
How you
more like
offer
scheduling.
Right,
Scheduling.
a broader
Scheduling,
term.
what you put
Right.
on the calendar versus a particular program, which would be
Specific.
a class or a speaker.
Yeah, that there is a difference there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree, programming.
Programming feels okay.
Yeah, and so you could say programming opportunities or
Sure.
opportunities.
Programming opportunities, I'd rather hear programming versus program.
Right.
Because then you're starting to get very specific.
Too narrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that reflect the diverse demographics of our community. So to me then, you know, and I think that some of this language that I started with came from college campuses. Like I did a lot of research after that Putin program because I was like, well, those are publicly funded organizations. I wonder how they do that because, you know, there's a lot of controversial speakers on campus. And so that's kind of where I had drawn some of this language early on. But now I feel like that speaks to our department's commitment to do more diverse things, but I don't know if that, you know, this programming policy, is it giving directive or is it giving parameters? You know what I mean? Because I want to make sure, you know, the goal is when I leave, the next director, whomever it may be, say, oh yeah, that's what we want to make sure that we're doing. Or am I mixing up two things? You know what I'm saying? Am I mixing up, like I want our department to explore more culturally diverse, relevant programs and make sure that those are being offered so we're serving everybody? Is that a different subject line, or does this say, yep, that we need to do more of broad programming?
I think that in the purpose statement, diverse demographics of our community is very inclusive. I think that does it.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to say more.
Okay.
It would just be kind of
The
redundant.
less wordy you get, the easier it is to write a policy.
You know, and looking at that, rereading that purpose again, I think it's the decision of, like when it says open and inclusive programs, you say opportunities, then on the second
And
line,
it says programs.
if offering open and inclusive, didn't you say opportunities?
Yeah.
Programming opportunities.
Because, or should it say open and inclusive programming that reflect the diverse demographics? And then the second sentence, our programs, it should be our
Programming.
opportunities or our programming. Because programs are specific. You know, if you're going to use programming as the general, or it could be opportunities, either one, but they should be consistent.
Yeah. But I think if you say programming opportunities. in
Yeah, I
the
do.
first
Yeah,
line,
yeah.
And then, yeah.
and then in the next line, you could say programming, our programming.
While we support a variety of topics, our programming does not necessarily represent the views of the department.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put that in there for the next time, and then we'll kind of let that, think about that, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's always, you know, we have a lot of discussion, and then it's nice to put that together
Yep.
in one thing
Yep.
so we can see what we kind of gelled on.
Yep. Me too.
And next time we'll review that and hopefully approve it.
Yeah, and like you guys said in the beginning, the call to action, I like the way that the lawyer changed that.
Yeah.
Because initially, we were like, you can't encourage people to do anything, and they said, well, what if the program's about, you know, maybe recycle more, which we've
Yeah.
had a recycling program, like, that's kind of a call to action. So you don't want to not encourage people maybe to do that. So I kind of like that she defined it more about illegal or violent activities, so. Okay.
Is it necessary, and this is just a question, to add some level of oversight or enforcement? In other words, would you have a checklist? Would you have some sort of approval process for somebody who proposes a program to you that it meets these policy requirements? Would you have that, something that you might have on record then? Should there, I don't anticipate
It's more of a procedure than a policy.
I think that was, again, my first experience with offering something that somebody had an issue with. And, in all my years, I think I would probably pause and bring it to you guys for input. If it felt like that topic was going to be really controversial, that it would come to this committee.
Right, but don't all of your policies have a third level, like I think it's under enforcement or decision-making or something, where you would add that, lay that out, that you would have a process for approving.
Sure.
Somebody needs to approve this program. You can't just show up and say, I'm here to present.
Yeah, so does it meet the criteria?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So would that criteria be a part of this policy?
Well, I can't think of the term right now for your existing policies, but you do have a process like we had for the disruptive behavior, where it goes to the director and they...
Right, and like
so
these
I think you need that third level.
I like that.
If you want to do that. I mean, if you probably don't need it for internal programming programs, but maybe something said for external speakers programs.
You could use that just add a sentence on programming opportunities must be approved by the director.
I think it's, I'm sorry I don't have instant recall of the policy format, but I believe
you're
that
right.
all of your
In the
policies
previous reference,
have
the director.
a level of responsibility or enforcement or whatever you want to call it.
And actually, you were saying it's maybe not necessarily for internal. Quite frankly, I think you do need to check your internal periodically. And if you've got that checklist, are we putting out some things that really doesn't meet the criteria that we're saying, so that we aren't talking on two sides, you know what I mean?
Or, it's willy-nilly, it's subjective, because I'm selecting it, and, and again, moving down the road, I definitely, am willing to take a risk on certain things and maybe push boundaries. I know that about myself, so having a checks and balance feels really good to me.
Yeah, sometimes you have to really check yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think my only concern would be if something great was coming down the pike and I don't have time to bring it to the commission, how do we develop a checklist that doesn't bog down everything?
You don't need the commission to approve everything.
Oh, no.
I think that would be up to the director, just as, the director
just based
has
on the criteria
authority.
that okay.
And that you have an audit trail for this.
Exactly.
One way to do it would be, and this is more from an education perspective, but school districts have policies that school boards have to change. Nobody can amend it but the board. Okay. There's administrative guidelines that the administrative level can follow, and they're guidelines, but they don't have, everything doesn't have to go to the school board.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like an administrative guideline, and then it's administrative, whoever that is, if it's you or Mandy or whoever approves them, but it's a process.
I like it.
It's your same level of approval of you have the authority to ask someone to leave if they're being disruptive. And what that level of appeal might be if somebody doesn't, if you say, no, I don't think this is an appropriate program, then they would have. And at that stage, maybe it would come to the commission.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it definitely gives that audit trail.
Yes.
So that,
Yeah.
you know, that's critical right there.
Right. And so what would that be called?
Administrative guidelines.
I think just look at your policies and mirror what
It should
you
be the
have.
same language though for
Right.
everything.
Consistent, yeah,
Yeah.
very, yeah.
But I know you have
Not
that
to call out
for,
those criteria in your policy. I don't
Sorry?
believe you're recommending that we would call out specific criteria that the director would use in that assessment process, not in a policy.
Not in the policy.
No,
it's
right, this
just
would be
level-
kind of a
It's
separate,
just like a checklist.
Yeah.
It's like level of authority or who has, who's got the, who can decide these things. And you can delegate that to, Mandy, for example, or however those are to David.
yeah, it's usually Dave and I. It's kind of-
Director or
Yeah.
designee.
But
And I think, but what's real important is so that you guys are both on the same page in terms of understanding.
Oh, I know.
Because that could really be a fiasco if not.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I like that. So I will put together some thoughts, and bring them next month. And then we can kind of hammer that out and you guys think about that too, so.
This is a
I
really
think what-
important
We
policy.
did this with the personal care policy.
Right.
We added a sentence that said essentially something.
Look at the personal care.
Yeah, I know that we've done this,
Yeah.
and I think it should be on all your policies, actually, who's got the level, what level of authority, and appeal process or whatever, if someone doesn't
Okay.
feel that they've been
Yep.
treated fairly or whatever.
Yep. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, we'll revisit that for next month.
That's another policy, the appeal policy.
My last campus had a committee on committees.
Yes.
Truly.
Okay,
It was very
let's
political.
move on to our next item, which was this equity checklist.
Yes.
About 12 pages long.
Right, I know. It's really not that bad. So this is something, and this is all
16 and 17.
This is all being driven by trying to serve more. We had implemented a lesbian social group, and that did go through the city attorney. Some of the groups, I just want to make sure that I'm not rocking the boat, that I want to be all-inclusive and offer something for everybody. So Carol, who facilitates the group, she's a former social worker and worked for the state, has done a lot of stuff on this topic. And so she found this document that was created by the agencies on the back: Administration for Community Living, National Asian Pacific Center on Aging, Advocacy and Services for LGBTQ Elders, National Indian Council, National Caucus for Black Aging, the New York Academy. So anyway, a lot of different organizations that created a checklist for older adult specific programs to make sure that we are being equitable. Now, in talking to her, and I like this topic a lot. There's a difference between equity and inclusion, and so we've just been discussing this a lot. But I wanted to bring this to you guys because it's something that I want our department to look at really closely and have our own criteria that matches the city. So the city also has a diversity and an inclusion work group comprised of different employees from different departments. So we're kind of paralleling the work that they're doing. And really, I bring this to you today to say this is a road I want to go down, to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Fitchburg is more diverse than ever. And so kind of looking at this, I also want to bring to you either next month or the following month is a lot of demographic information about Fitchburg that will help us guide. Yep. And it's kind of fun and interesting to look at and say, what are we doing? Are we doing enough? And I think that having a checklist, having that data, the demographic data, everything is changing right now with Fitchburg having a lot more senior housing, a lot more affordable senior housing. Everything is changing, and I just want to keep pace with that as well.
Will your data show look back, or is it just now? It'd be interesting to see.
Oh, I mean, it's the data
years.
I'm pulling out is from the census data is the best in the
Because
American.
I think the makeup has changed a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
Demographics, absolutely.
So I can look at, there's 2010 and 2020,
Yeah.
and I have 2010, and I've compiled 2020. It's taken me a while to learn how to use the U.S. Census data website, but I actually did a presentation to the Wisconsin Association of Senior Centers, so I learned a lot about it because data is very important when you're asking for funding, when you're changing things, when you're saying, are we meeting the needs? And also, too, everything is sort of paralleling what we've been working on the last I think year with the plan for growth by doing the survey and trying to figure out who are we serving and how are they serving, and so that's another thing. Linda, who Gorchel, who obviously was on the council, is part of the plan for growth, and she's going to come next month and present the survey results to the Commission on Aging.
Oh, good. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, so I thought that would be helpful. So we worked on that survey for months, and again, it kind of, everything is just kind of heading in the same direction, and they kind of overlap. So I like the timing of the survey, the demographics, the diversity, the equity, and so it's not really anything to do today except get some input about how you feel about moving forward with such a thing. Yeah.
I feel very strongly about this, but one category that is not on here under communities of greatest social need is poverty. And I think that that's an overlooked issue for that affects so many people in many, many ways. And I think we need to look at issues of poverty as well as, as a factor of inclusion and diversity, because poverty disrupts so much in people's lives and prevents them from maybe participating in.
Well, that's the equity
includes
part. If you don't have transportation and you don't have finances to
what if you have to
buy
pay a
food?
fee for
Right.
something?
Yeah.
So I think we should add that proactively.
Well, and that's why equity is so different than inclusion.
Yeah.
Equity is equal access.
Right.
Inclusion is just making it available.
Yeah, but that poverty, you're absolutely right. It's so critical because if you think about, Jill, the people that come for nutrition, for the lunches, those individuals certainly fall into that category. And the more the demographics has changed here in the older adults, most of them, many of them are probably, and many of them don't even come to the center. The demographics here are so different these days that poverty is so definitely strong, and it does impact equity and inclusion because they can't participate. For example, in France, when you guys do the trips and what have you, they can't go. They can't afford to do that. Many of them they have to ride that bus because they don't have a car. They can't drive. Come to the center and spend time, a full day and socialize with people.
Right.
So that poverty impacts in so many different ways that I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Not to mention the social stigma.
Oh yeah. Oh,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that another speaker, and I like to do this when we have a new commission member, is to bring the social workers up for a presentation to talk about what they do and who they serve. And I think their stories are interesting. I don't talk a lot about the cases that we see here in Fitchburg and the people that we serve, but that's a whole different part of what we do that it really represents some of the poverty and mental illness and the things that we're dealing with here in Fitchburg that we didn't have 20 years ago.
And the lines of Fitchburg is so broad. I mean, we're here in this particular area, and up Fishactory Road, the new buildings that's coming up for seniors. But think about way over Allied Drive and over in that area those people can't get over here to. I mean, so it's such a broad, strong impact on people that I I think that we really need to take a good look at those demographics, and that was one of the things I was going to ask. Could we have Mike Zimmerman come and talk with us? I would love to hear, his perspective on it. He and I chatted one time, but I'd love to hear if we could have him come in and really talk about it.
Yeah, he'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, this was kind of more of a discussion to get us on a path.
Yeah.
And so.
It also.
I'm sorry, I thought the checklist was excellent and a good process.
A good process. I couldn't create my own. It's
Right.
not my
It's a starting
expertise,
point.
but right. We don't have to stay tied to this. We can edit it. We can create our own to make sure it fits our, our community. So.
It's another topic, but this will really help support the need for transportation. See, that's the data that needs to be there.
You know my feeling about the transportation
'Cause that is
thing.
equity.
Oh my God.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
That's for sure. So.
Yeah, we had men's group, we had a presentation with the B-cycle thing.
Oh, yeah, right.
But you have to have an iPhone or a smartphone. Well, if you're in poverty, you don't have a smartphone.
Right?
So
And
you
they
can't
put
use
it
that program at all.
and not that not everybody, but Limerick is affordable senior housing, and so maybe there's lower income folks there so they have a B-cycle station there. But my, and I don't know, I had talked to Steve about this, like, can the senior center through the Friends I don't know how they work, I should have gone to the program, buy some kind of cards where we can
No,
give
they
them
do
what
not
we
have
use
a
for
card
free?
program. It's only a phone, smartphone. You have to have a smartphone because you program, you turn on the app, and then you punch the button that the station that you're at, and that goes back to the computer and says, okay, this one is open for you to take a ride, and they charge your account.
But I think you'd be surprised at how many people do have a smartphone. I mean, I don't know.
People in poverty?
I think they might, yeah, because it might maybe their only phone. Maybe they don't have a landline.
We
in
have
the
a lot of
sense that
flip
we
phone
used to.
people.
But some of them don't have landlines and don't have smartphones.
Right.
Yeah, no smartphone. I don't think there's a lot of people that have smartphones that are poverty.
Yeah.
I don't think the e-bikes are the answer to transportation.
No.
Not all the way, but we had a woman
It'll
walk
help.
down from Chapel Valley yesterday, and she's kind of new to the area, and she doesn't drive anymore, and she wanted to come to the senior center. She walked, which is, it's a hike.
It's a long way.
And she was like, I didn't know how hot it was and how far it was, and so, we gave her a ride home, but, it's like, there's, yeah.
And it's things that perhaps we all just take for granted, right? And you don't think about it. It's out of sight, out of mind. And
Yeah. No, it's changing, and it's an exciting time, and it feels good to lay some solid groundwork to meet these increasing needs that we're seeing. So
Well, and it's also a process. We never will probably be there. You have to keep moving forward.
Right.
Keep getting better.
But it's a way to gather information, especially if you do it annually, quarterly,
Right.
whatever, semi-annually, and to feed information to the city of things that they ought to be looking at, because these issues affect everybody, not just seniors.
Exactly.
right. Oh, for sure.
So in answer to your original question, are you headed in the right direction?
Yes.
Are you sensing support?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. We've been going for over an hour now. We still have senior center friends.
It will be very short.
Yeah, you're short. I'll be short. Yeah.
Okay. Senior center friends.
Yes, pancake breakfast, huge success as a fundraiser. It was one of those times, it's the first time I've ever been involved in actually putting it on. I was amazed at all the collaborative work and volunteers. And one of the things that I was a greeter, and it was such a community event, and the different ages, families coming in, all different varieties. So I think it was a good community builder as well as a great fundraiser. So the income for The Friends was over $5,000. That's after expenses.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was great. And it was over 600 tickets sold
Wow.
that were counted. I mean,
A lot of
we were wondering
pancakes.
maybe it was. Could have even been more. But yeah, and much, also interesting, 2019, there were 430 people, but 400 adults. And there were a lot of kids there, I thought.
Oh, a
lot of
ton,
kids.
a ton.
And in 2018, 575, so it kind of beat the record, I think. Yeah, so it was really great. Obviously, the patio, we're very excited about that and really happy that the Friends were able to help support that.
Janice, the Friends paid nearly, I think it was just around 10,000. They paid for, to hire the architectural firm to do the renderings of the patio.
That's great.
And help us, they sort of help create the RFP and work with Public Works. So that was the Friends' contribution to the patio.
The travel trips for the this year are all set. However, exciting for the 2024 travel show will be June 20th at 1 o'clock at the reserved room at the library. We were all wondering what that was, but it's a special, it's called that, right? Reserve room?
Oh, I don't know what it is.
Well, anyway,
It's a
it's at
large
the library.
mirror.
It's a large mix,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
nice.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
it is
so that presentation will be at 1 o'clock on June
Awesome.
20th. And I did take a picture of the upcoming ones: Danube Explorer River Cruise, Holland Tulip Festival, Yellowstone Grand Mount Rushmore, and Montana Glacier National Park. It's a
Nice.
beautiful poster.
Yeah, and there's flyers downstairs for each of those.
So exciting. The showcase has been updated, and one of the members mentioned they were down at that end. And a lot of people looked at the showcase, because it was kind of
Yeah, I know,
away, but
it's
yeah.
down
So,
there.
and then also the webpage is up and running, and we had our first PayPal donation. Maybe more by now, I don't know, but someone actually did it.
Uh-huh.
And then also, we are looking for people to join the committee. There's several openings, and several people are on their third term. So anybody that's interested in being in the Friends, please send them our way, because we need to keep that committee going. So.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question? On your travel, how diverse is that in terms of participants?
That I'm not sure.
Probably not very.
Yeah, I would say probably people that can afford it, right?
Well, but it's mostly white people that I'm seeing it on the buses and that, looking at the rosters and stuff.
Yeah, and the thing about Fitchburg, you've got those that don't have, can't afford, but you've got a lot of people of color in Fitchburg that could afford that. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
How do, what's the outreach to?
That's a very good question. I will bring that back to the Friends. I think that's a very good question.
Just because there's a lot of really affluent
Yeah.
people of color, black people, Hispanic, that live in Fitchburg.
That's a great.
Well, and that's maybe where you're, I think it's a communication issue too, because unless you come into the senior center, you have no way of knowing what is
Going on.
about that travel show.
And that's why I talk about the outreach, right?
And unless you look at the posters on the wall, you wouldn't know about the travel, or pick it up in the Fitchburg,
Well,
in
there's also
the
the
primetime
Senior
news.
Center website that has all that on it.
Well, right, or now the Friends website.
Yeah.
But that's more of them coming to us, right?
Right.
Versus us going to them and
Right.
getting that information out
That's
to
actually.
people.
Right. But those are obstacles that we need to
Address.
continually look at.
Because even the demographics at the pancake breakfast,
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
And it's funny, not funny, but we were talking about that as a staff, like, what is it? Is it because there was posters everywhere. There were
Everywhere,
signs
signs all
everywhere.
over. Yeah.
But were they? You know what I mean?
Were they
on Ally Drive?
Yeah, I mean, where
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
it's just now just thinking through a different lens and looking at our programs differently. I mean, it was a huge success. Bringing families in was real
it's great, and
successful.
it's absolutely great.
That was really nice. But yeah, I was, it's
Yeah.
always on my mind now. And
We have a meeting
we have-
tomorrow, so I will bring these up for small committee group of
Yeah.
advertising.
So.
I mean, because that could be fun for the,
And it should be.
Yeah,
Because it's
community-wise,
community
it has to be,
connections
right? Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
so anyway, yeah. Okay, all right. I will go, yeah. My notes here. Okay. Just a little update on the water break. The social workers room is still not completed. We're working on, waiting on carpet. We selected carpet. They're going to recarpet that room. They still need to fix the drywall. And then they did decide we're going to recarpet the receptionist area because that was pretty flooded. And they dried it out and they glued the tiles back down, but I can tell the tiles are already coming up. And so we're going to get that recarpeted too. So maybe another month. Those social workers are all crammed in that conference room, getting on each other's nerves because they're all on the phone at the same time. I talked about the survey results. Linda will be here next month. She already committed to that, to talk about that. I met with Public Works Director Tim and another engineer, Ross. That's his name, relatively new to Public Works, and we talked about transportation because, as you guys know, it's just an ongoing issue. The former transportation engineer, who was probably the third in about 3 years, we really were on a good track. We had encouraged the city to put money in to purchase the bus. They also put money in to do a transit study. It just gets difficult when we get staff turnover because it's starting back at ground zero in the longevity that I have with the 2 other studies, as well as rideshare, the pilot program. Not many people understand what happened and how it happened, so I met with them to try to bring them up to speed. I showed them over the years through the Friends, through CDBG grant funds for almost 20 years, how much money that the Friends and myself writing grants had raised to supplement transportation. It was well over 15,000. Maybe it was, I'll bring it to you guys. I was shocked when I looked back at how many CDBG grants I wrote and how much the Friends had contributed because we would just hire our own shuttle and do this all on our own. And again, it's just, it's bigger than me now. It's more than just older adults, and the city needs to make a commitment. They're going to push back the purchase of the bus because, again, the city hasn't agreed to have a driver. And I refuse to have a bus and run it through a volunteer because when a volunteer calls in sick, or they're going on vacation and I'm constantly trying to find another driver that's qualified to pick up people, it's not sustainable and it's not a good way to start a program. So, it's a little deflating that it got pushed back another year, but that doesn't mean our advocacy is going to get pushed back. So,
Jill, what's been the results of the studies?
The studies have indicated that Fitchburg needs something. There was a Fitchburg flyer proposed from east to west that didn't go through, but then they did the ride share, which was kind of like a shared ride taxi. You called in, it could be door to door. They created signs at bus stops. There was various fees that were confusing, and then the company they hired didn't do a great job. They might not show up, they get lost, their cars were not nice. It's really frustrating. And so with the turnover in Public Works and the transportation engineers, it's just nobody's really fighting the fight as much as we are. And So I think maybe as a commission, we go to, there is a Transit and Transportation Commission that we've written letters to. We talked about Metro trying to get the rapid bus route down to City Hall, because that would then bring people down here, as well as Metro Plus, which is the handicapped part of Metro. But that didn't go through because we annexed the town of Madison, and they had, so reallocating, and I understand it's a complex issue, and I strongly feel that it's not an issue that anyone's willing to make a decision on it, because it's going to be a costly decision, and maybe the ridership won't be there in the beginning, but it will grow. And I think that the numbers and the needs show it. So that's kind of where we are now with that. They will put out the RFP for the transit study to look at what we need or how to make it happen. So we're there again. The Senior Center did apply for a grant through the Area Agency on Aging, Henry Leck grant, for a cultural event series to look at celebrating different holidays and traditions, to try to educate people about different cultures. We've done Juneteenth celebration the last 2 years. Susie was really instrumental in getting the city to declare that as a holiday. So this is the first year that they did that. And so we'll be doing an event for Juneteenth. We haven't heard about the grant yet, but we're going to do a celebration for Hispanic Heritage Month, the Hmong New Year, St. Lucia, which is a Scandinavian holiday, and Bastille Day. Just a variety, and each of them, if we get this grant, will involve traditional food, a presentation, maybe music, but something that will educate people about different cultures. And so we'll see about that. We are working with New Bridge Diversity and Inclusion Program. I've talked about them in the past because we've done a lot with their Hispanic program, particularly Hispanic bingo. But we've done a little bit now with Her Story, and looking at other programs that we can collaborate on. So Janice has been an important piece in those conversations, as she was very involved in Her Story. And so we have a meeting hopefully scheduled in the next couple weeks, because Newbridge got a grant for both their Black and Hispanic cultural diversity programs to do programs here in Fitchburg. So we're going to talk about what that looks like and how we can do that. And so moving forward with that, and Older Americans Month is May. We always celebrate and do a celebration and recognize people over 90. We had at least 60 or 70 names in our database of people over 90. A lot of those names are from people we case manage that might not come to the Senior Center regularly, so we blast out flyers to those individuals and invite them here. And so that's next Wednesday. Usually we'll get about 20 people over 90 participate. And otherwise, the newsletter's chock full. I know, we have an estate planning program with 50 people signed up already. That Learning and Growing into Your Second Act is full, with a wait list of about 9 people. So yeah, people are reading the newsletter and signing up. And I think that's everything on my list.
Okay.
Oh, and but Janice had a couple questions. Oh, but we can do that in a minute. Yeah. Okay. That's my report.
Okay, announcements.
I know I had sent you guys out a couple questions from Janice. And I thought we could just, go through them, and we can continue to talk about them. But I thought they were good questions, and it's nice to have a new member and, just look at things in a different lens, as each of you do. Our first question is, what has been the greatest success of the center and the commission? And I think really Jim and Barb, being here the longest, and myself, would be the only ones that could answer that, since
I'm going to have to scoot.
yeah, no problem. Because Donna's new and Pam's pretty new, so I don't think they would be able to answer that.
Okay.
See you later. So I don't know, Jim, if you have any thoughts. I do, but
I'm going to have to leave pretty soon too.
okay.
I would suggest we postpone
You want to postpone it?
Yeah,
Give it some more thought? No
week.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah. These aren't make or break, but I think it's
They're good
nice.
questions.
They're good questions.
Yeah.
And for Donna to hear too.
I was going to say
And
the questions
Pam.
I would have liked to have asked.
Yeah, no, right. So, okay, no problem. No
Is
problem
that
at all.
okay with you?
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, I'm going to throw out the legacy program as one of an example, just to maybe get people thinking.
Is getting the city to really look at our funds and make sure that we're allocating people that give us donations. It doesn't go to the general fund.
And formalizing that so that people know, so that can be. And I think Ada Deer's contribution of renaming the commission to the Commission on Aging Well.
Before
And
Ada came, it was only Commission on Aging.
Oh,
And
okay.
Ada was like, that makes no sense. It should be Commission on Aging. Well, I love that.
And
So we got
I
that.
think it was a great way of refocusing
Yeah.
what we do and why we're here.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we can continue the discussion, because again, I think for Donna to understand some of that, and even Paul's not here today, and Paul's relatively new.
Right.
So,
I sure like that.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, so,
So do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
Second.
Moving and seconded, all in favor?
I'll let you say.
I was waiting for you, but you were taking a little bit.
All in favor?
You have to have.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
are you moved in?